this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with our house DJ Tolliver. And Tolliver, the listeners, as you know, are the stars of this show. And not just when they get pulled over by the police while they're on the phone.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm never going to forget that call. I'm pretty sure she's doing a hard time right now. I changed her life.
I hope not. But this hour, the listeners are definitely the stars, because rather than saying this is the issue we're going to talk about this hour with just 1 month to go before the election, we're going to say, what is the most important issue to you with 1 month to go until the election? And the thing about a topic like that is, well, who do you bring on the panel? Who can talk about anything, Tolliver?
Oprah. We got Oprah? Is Oprah on?
She's busy, but we do have two former governors, one Democrat and one Republican, who've had to deal with just about every issue under the sun, and we're going to get to them in just a moment and take your calls at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. But first, on our last show, just after the debate between vice presidential candidates J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, we asked you for your thoughts. Here are some of the reactions to the debate that didn't make it onto the show.
My name is Julie Brigham. I live in Columbia, Illinois. I really didn't know how the Republicans must be blaming, seems like almost everything on illegal immigrants. I didn't know that they were the reason behind the housing shortage, the economy. It seemed like he blamed everything on the migration problem.
Hi, yes, my name is Jeremy. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. Before this debate, I didn't really know too much about either one of the vice presidential nominees. But I think it really gave us an opportunity to see who Walz really is, and it gave us an opportunity to see what he really stands for. And I think he did a great job.
Hi, this is Rachel Brand from Denver, Colorado. After tonight's debate, I came off feeling more positive about J.D. Vance. He comes across as very intelligent. He's got a lot of very idealistic notions that may not have any tether to reality, but they sure do sound good.
Well, thanks to everyone who called in, and you can hear that entire episode on our podcast in partnership with iHeart Podcasts on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to podcasts. So now to our topic this hour. What is the most important issue for you with 1 month left till the election? Tolliver, can you give us the number, please?
Yeah, it's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com.
Let's meet our panel. Phil Bredesen was the Democratic governor of Tennessee from 2003 to 2011, and Republican Bill Haslem held the office right after him from 2011 to 2019. Together, they host the You Might Be Right podcast in partnership with the Baker School of Public Policy and Public Affairs at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Governors, welcome to the middle.
Thank you. Great to be here. Who had to tell Oprah that we had preempted her?
I know. We're going to have to let her know that. Before we get to the phones, I want to ask each of you just about the very serious storm that has just ravaged so much of the Southeast, including Tennessee. Hurricane Helene, a lot of problems going on there, devastation in a number of states, including Tennessee. What does the country need to know about what's happening in Tennessee, Governor Bredesen?
Oh, I think I thought that that from what I could see, that FEMA and the federal government were doing a good job of responding. I think one of the things we ought to be proud of in this country is a good emergency response operation, and it was devastating to see some of the flooding in Upper East Tennessee, but also over in North Carolina and down in Georgia, and to really feel for those people. But I do think the federal government did what it needed to do and is continuing to do what it needs to do to try to alleviate some of the suffering.
Governor Bredesen, there are so many moments when hurricanes come right before an election, and you think of Hurricane Sandy back in 2012, Hurricane Katrina in 2005, before the 2006 midterms, where they can really have an effect. Do you think that Hurricane Helene, the preparation, the response, will have an effect this year?
I don't think, certainly not at the level that Sandy did, which got much more weaponized in the election there. But the fact that the response has been from the federal government seems to have been, to me, a very responsible one and an effective one. I don't think it should have that kind of an effect this year. Could be wrong.
Governor Haslem, what do you think of right now of the response to Helene in Tennessee and in other states?
I think the initial response has been good. I think what I'd want people to know is this storm did major damage, and the fact that this is in the mountains makes it so much harder. There's fewer routes of ingress and egress to get places. People are trapped. The water that flows off of those mountains has to go somewhere. It creates tremendous strain downstream, downriver. And this is going to be a long time to clean up. And I think what Governor Bredesen and I would both tell you is you have the initial response when everybody shows up, and then you have the, how do we rebuild this? And I talked to somebody today who was a farmer who lost all of his equipment, and regular insurance doesn't cover floods. This is 1,400-year flood, like a flood that you'd expect once every 1,400 years. So it is going to be a long time rebuilding from this.
Before we get to the calls, and they're starting to come in and fill up the lines, the two of you host this podcast called You Might Be Right. You come from opposite parties. It's not always easy for people to talk to people they disagree with politically. Governor Bredesen, how do you guys do it?
I think it's well, first of all, to be realistic, it helps that we're both from the sort of relatively reasonable middle wings of our
You're both
party,
moderates,
so
basically.
We're not shouting each other across this huge gap. All this obviously differences in worldview and so on. The fact that we were friends before this, I think helps a lot as well. It's one of the things I kind of feel is getting lost in politics. I think there was a time when Democrats and Republicans could, fight about something during the day and have a drink together at night. And I think we've tried hard to establish that kind of a relationship that, there's two elements to it. There's a lot of mutual respect, and there's some things we disagree on.
Although I should add that we don't go drinking every night together. That's just to be clear there.
Just on weekends, yeah.
Right.
Let's get to the phones. We're again asking people, what is the number one issue to you as we head into this election just 1 month away? Our number is 844-464-3353. Joseph is in St. Louis. Joseph, what's the number one issue for you?
Evening. I'm a single issue voter, and it's immigration. I'd like to see deportations of everyone illegally here and an immigration moratorium for the foreseeable future. I mean, the last few years, everyone I know, except for the very wealthy, and I don't know too many of those, but the upper middle class to working class, black, white, Hispanic, who are legal residents, have really been struggling. I mean, I've been watching some of my friends, young families, cracking apart under financial pressure, and it's just incomprehensible and offensive to see our government spending our tax dollars, housing, feeding, clothing, health care, all of these things for, these people coming in and they want a better life. I get that. What about our better life? I mean, a bank robber wants a better life too, and we don't allow that, and we separate bank robbers from their families and send them to jail, and we don't let their kids take their ill-gotten gains.
So, Joseph,
really
let me just ask you one follow-up here, because one of the things that we've heard over the last couple of months is that this very conservative immigration bill that was a bipartisan bill was put together by a very conservative Republican was basically shot down by former President Trump, who it was reported that he, wanted to be able to run on this issue, didn't want it done. Are you upset with him about killing that bill?
No, that bill was a hoax. It was a Chamber of Commerce Republican thing that allowed 5,000 immigrants in a day, and then it was up to the discretion of the president whether to even stop it. I mean, that's insane. It was not a good bill for someone who's an immigration restrictionist like me. And then the larger thing is, it's fine to have some people come in, but this mass, unrelenting millions and millions, it taps social trust. It fractures the national identity, and from the breakup of the Ottoman Empire to Yugoslavia, Rwanda, Sri Lanka, even Northern Ireland, these things can have, if we lose a war or if the dollar isn't the reserve currency, it could get really ugly is what I'm saying.
Okay. Joseph, thank you very much for that. I'll go to you, Governor Bredesen, on that. This is actually in the polls. Immigration is seen as one of the top issues, one of the top one or two issues going into this election.
I think where I might disagree a little bit with your caller is we shouldn't confuse immigration, which is not well controlled at the moment, which I would certainly say is the case, with just immigration as a general good. I mean, I think on the whole, having immigrants, having people who come here to college be able to stay on and function in the country. There clearly are places where the labor force needs immigrants for things. Farming is an obvious one. Some of the building trades, another. And I mean, to me, the issue is not immigration or no immigration. It's I think we have the duty to control our border and make political decisions about who we want to admit and who we don't. And I think that's the direction we ought to be going in. And I actually think the bill that was up there was a reasonable first step in that direction.
Mm-hmm. But of course, it did not go anywhere. You're Tolliver. We're going to be talking about the big issues, the economy, immigration, and other things. But sometimes what pushes a candidate over the top is something entirely different, something that may not affect the daily lives of voters.
Yeah, like in the year 2000, fresh off the Monica Lewinsky scandal, George W. Bush ran against Bill Clinton's vice president, Al Gore. Here he is on restoring honor and integrity to the White House.
If I'm the one that you nominate or start on the nomination process tomorrow and eventually become your president, when I put my hand on the Bible on that January day of 2001, I will swear to not only uphold the laws of the land, I will swear to uphold the honor and the integrity of the office to which I have been elected, so help me God. Thank you all for coming, and God bless.
Remember it like it was yesterday.
That was a very close election, by the way, Tolliver. 537 votes in the state of Florida. So I guess honesty and integrity back into the White House wasn't that good of an issue because he didn't win by a landslide. We'll be right back with more of The Middle. This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We are focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking you, what is the most important issue for you with 1 month left till the election? Tolliver, what is the number for people to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on social media.
I'm joined by former Tennessee Governors Phil Bredesen, a Democrat, and Bill Haslem, a Republican. And let's go back to the phones because they're full. Laura is in Nashville, Tennessee, one of your constituents, perhaps, former constituents. Laura, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead with your top issue.
Hi. I am calling because I feel like, for me personally, the biggest issue is LGBTQ rights. Specifically trans rights for minors. I'm the proud mom of a trans kid, and I feel like this issue, especially over the last couple of years, has become a very divisive issue, and it feels like these kids are being used as scapegoats, and unfortunately, we're in a state where there are laws on the books that prevent my child from having the same rights as a cisgender child. We have to travel out of state to get the health care that he deserves. And that, I'll do anything for my child, like most parents, but it makes me angry. And he's at the point now, he's a couple of years away from going to college, and he's talking about going out of the country for college and living out of the country because he does not feel safe. Thankfully, we're in Nashville, so it's progressive and safe. He's at a great school and has great friends and community, but, that's not the case. Right. There are states we can't even travel to and be safe. So anyway, that's my issue, and I want to say hi to the governors. I love both of you, so I voted for both of you. So it's exciting to hear your voices.
Wow, a bipartisan voter. Laura, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Governor Haslem, let me go to you on that because for many people, and it could be the issue of trans rights where they have a family member who is thinking about their own rights. It could be also the issue of abortion rights in many places where people feel like it's really personal for them. Whatever they're voting on, it really has to do with their own lives and their rights.
Right. And so let me back up. And the premise of our podcast, you might be right, is these are hard issues, and our country is evenly split. I think that's a little bit of the theme of your show, Jeremy, is we think that everybody thinks like we do, but it's obviously not true. The country's fairly evenly split. And the point of our podcast is to say these hard issues, whether they be LGBTQ issues, whether they be immigration, gun rights, et cetera, let's stop and listen to the other side and hear their perspective. Because as Laura said, who called, once it's personal, once it's your family that's facing an issue around whether it's sexuality or immigration, whatever it is, then everything looks a little different. So the point of our show is to say, listen to the other side to see if there are some things that you might learn from them. And it's hard to comment just, from 30,000 feet exactly about Laura's question. I would say this, I think for a lot of folks, it's a question of having with minor children, are their parents part of the decision-making process or not? Because that feels like a real distinctive to me, that when it's up to a minor, we require their parents to sign off on a whole lot of things for them. And so if it involves something as critical as their gender identity, the parents should be a part of that. If it's a minor child, would be the first thought that I have.
Governor Bredesen, do you have a different thought on that, or do you agree with Governor Haslem?
I certainly, as a parent, would want to be involved in that decision with my own child. I do agree with that. I also think that, a part of the ethic of this country is the notion that, we're all God's children, and that everyone ought to be valued for who it is that they are. There's a quote from Samuel Johnson that I love, from a long time ago. Which says, "It's no one dream that pleases these all." And I think just recognizing that there's a lot of different ways to conduct your life and have respect for them is important. The one thing that I probably am a little to the right of my party on is I do have questions when you start talking about things that can't be reversed being done to children who are not of age, who are not 18 and make their own decisions. I'm not sure that really is the kind of informed consent for those kinds of things that I would like to see. I'd like to learn more about it, but that gives me some pause.
I also do want to highlight that Tennessee has one of the very few transgender elected officials, Olivia Hill, in Metro Council in Nashville.
Let's go to Dia, who's in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. Dia, welcome to the middle. What's your top issue?
I am concerned that income inequality is being cast onto immigrants and anybody who can be othered who is also struggling, instead of the people who are really squeezing the country, which are the super wealthy and corporations. You have these corporations that own all these companies under one umbrella and can buy up real estate and can inflate prices and get money from the government that they use for stock buybacks and don't pay their workers enough. And because they own media companies, they can create this narrative that, no, the problem is immigrants, or the problem is poor people, or the problem is cities, and take the light off of themselves, and people buy it because this country, because of capitalism, wants to find an other to blame for why they don't have what they believe they should have.
So on the issue of income inequality, Dia, what would you like to see done?
There should be more regulation about monopolizing companies. There should be higher taxes on the super wealthy. We should have taxes on unrealized gains. And I think that there should be caps on how much people can be paid. You have these CEOs that are making obscene amounts of money, and the people who work for them, who are actually doing the work, that can't survive on their income. And there needs to be more enforced income inequality. And this idea of unbridled capitalism really requires human suffering to survive.
Dia, thank you for that. Governor Haslem, as a Republican, what do you think about what Dia just said there?
Well, let me say this. I think the market-based system, capitalism, has been responsible for pulling more people out of poverty worldwide than anything else. And is it perfect? No. Can we have a completely market-based system? No. But I don't think the idea of, I think Dia said enforced income equality. I don't think that's never worked anywhere. And it's actually never brought people out of poverty. The market-based system, with all of its faults, I still think is the best thing we have going in the world. And I think it's one of the reasons we have an economy that's far above, what you see in the rest of the world.
But do you see any threat to the market-based system from either of these candidates, Governor Haslem?
Actually, don't. I don't. Listen, I mean, obviously, they're going to come from different places. And if you look at kind of the spectrum of government controlled versus market controlled, they're going to come from different places on the spectrum. But the answer to your question is, I don't see either of them threatening that. I personally would like to see both of them addressing some of the structural issues around our deficit in this country, which neither one of them is talking about at all, and which I think is really serious. But that's a separate issue than I think what Dia is calling about.
Let's go to Duke, who's in Livingston, Montana. Duke, welcome to the middle. Go ahead with your top issue.
Yeah. Hi. My top issue is keeping our democracy intact. We have a candidate here who idolizes Putin and other dictators, said he wants to be a dictator on day one. Project 25, which is basically going to do away with all the bureaucrats who are experts in their agencies and replace them with political appointments. The candidate has said oh, why don't you just vote one more time and then we're going to fix it so you don't have to vote again. That's Donald Trump saying all this stuff. Democracy is the most important thing we have in our country. What matters if the price of bread goes up or if there's more immigrants coming into our country? What matters if gasoline prices go up? And nothing matters if we lose our democracy. I mean, do we want to be in a dictatorship? Do we want to live in Russia where people are afraid to speak out for fear they're getting put in jail forever? No, that's the most important thing, that we keep our democracy intact. So people need to be aware of.
Thank you for that. I think we've got it there. And let me go to Governor Bredesen for his response to that. A lot of people feel the same way, that democracy is the most important issue and they see a threat. By the way, I will note that in polls, Democrats see a threat from Trump for the things that Duke was talking about. Republicans often see a threat because they think that there's going to be voter fraud, and that's the threat to democracy.
Yeah, it's I actually agree with that caller in a lot of ways. You didn't ask us, but I mean, for me, the most important question in this election, the kind of the gorilla in the room, is not immigration or economy or or anything else. It's whether we're willing to try to recover an American government that works like the founders intended for it to work and the Constitution set up to work, or whether we're going to continue this march towards being like some impoverished, third world country with just out of control tribalism and people seeking power at any cost. And it's not only about the presidency. It's also about who you elect to the Congress, who you elect to the Senate, and I think those are fundamental issues. Most of the other issues, if we have a working government, we can work through those. We have for 200 plus years. That's what really scares me about this is whether there's enough people willing to say it's important to restore the kind of government that our founders intended.
Governor Haslem, what do you think about that? Do you agree with Governor Bredesen?
Well, partly. Listen, if you go talk, and I talk to people on both sides, of this, and both parties are both people in both parties are deathly afraid that the other side means to ruin our country. And it's really distinctive how much people feel that way. If their side wins, it's going to be the end of our country as we know it. I'll say this. I think what really is important, and I think the part I really agree with what Phil was saying, is this: understanding how our Constitution is designed, how this country is supposed to work, is really important. And I think our founders had the wisdom to know that we're imperfect people, and so they put a system in place that had checks and balances to it. And anything or any person or group that doesn't respect those checks and balances and how it's supposed to work and how we're supposed to understand that there's compromise has to be built into the process, I think is a long-term danger to the country.
Yeah, and I think, the other thing I think the founders understood was that there was always going to be a range of worldviews. People got different life experiences. They've got different belief systems, that you had to have a kind of government that could function in that environment, to accommodate that reality and allow us to govern and still protect those with differing views. That's what I fear we're losing in the attitudes of people, and what I think this election ultimately is going to play a major role in switching us on one course or the other.
Dan is in Boston, Massachusetts. Dan, welcome to The Middle. What's your top issue?
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks so much. I love this show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think most Americans are actually in the middle, so I appreciate you speaking to us. My top issue for the election is climate change. Barack Obama and John McCain ran on climate platforms that were very similar, and yet it's a hot, divided issue today. My question to the governors is, how do we get back to consensus on an issue that threatens our national and global security, food supply,
immigration, I guess is what you're probably trying to say there, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about flooding and so forth on the coast.
Right.
It's going to wipe out a huge amount of our infrastructure eventually. And of course, it's going to drive immigration. What we see now is just a trickle compared to what will happen in 20, 30 years when Mexico and countries south desiccate and can't support agriculture. So why can't we get it together on climate change? There's so much opportunity if we get it right.
Dan, thanks. Great question. Governor Haslem, your thoughts on that and how we get to a point where we're not fighting over something that, 99% of the scientists agree is happening.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the folks in my party who either deny or want to say climate change isn't an issue or that it's not caused by man, I think are wrong. Okay, so let's start there. I think we also have to realize that we can't go to solely sustainable sources of energy. We can't say, let's go totally there, because when we do, you'll see energy become short. The demand for energy now, due to all the technology we use, is actually for the first time in a long time back to increasing at a fairly rapid rate because of everything we want out of our phones and the AI that's driving our computers, et cetera. So I think we have to be realistic that we can't get there overnight, but we need a plan to do it. And I think what some folks need to hear is that as we work toward a sustainable future, we do it with the entire picture in mind. And I'll give you the example that I use a lot. And when COVID happened, we had people that said, shut the economy down, everybody stay home till this goes away. And we saw nobody took into account the impact on kids in schools and on jobs and on relationships and people's mental health, et cetera, because some people said, let's just shut it all down. I think what scares some people is the sense of if we say, yes, this is a real issue, that folks are going to say, let's just shut the economy down until we get it under control. I'm dramatizing there, but I think you get the point I'm making.
We're getting some comments in online. Ken DeBusk in Sturgis, Michigan says, number one issue, preservation of democracy in our Constitution. Number two, health care. And Emily in Duluth, Minnesota, the most important issue for me in this election are reproductive health care rights, as I believe reproductive health care is an essential right. We're hearing from you at listentothemiddle.com. And Tolliver, we've been talking about some of these big issues, but often there's an October surprise, something that we weren't really thinking about, but then it makes a big effect on the election.
Yeah, in 2016, the October surprise was FBI Director James Comey announcing he was reopening the Hillary Clinton email probe just 11 days before the election. Here's Clinton responding.
I have now seen Director Comey's letter to Congress. We are 11 days out from perhaps the most important national election of our lifetimes. Voting is already underway in our country. So the American people deserve to get the full and complete facts immediately. The director himself has said he doesn't know whether the emails referenced in his letter are significant or not. I'm confident, whatever they are, will not change the conclusion reached in July.
And by the way, she has said, Tolliver, that was a decisive reason for her loss in 2016. Pretty
I'd
amazing.
have to agree, yeah.
Yeah, we will be right back with more of your calls coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kidd with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968,
the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I actually drop better when I'm high. It heightens my senses, calms me down. If anything, I'm more careful. Honestly, it just helps me focus.
That's probably what the driver who killed a 4-year-old told himself. And now he's in prison. You see, no matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious Black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, Black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place. A story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. This hour we're asking you what is the most important issue for you with 1 month left until the election. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also reach out to us at listentothemiddle.com. I'm joined by former Tennessee governors Bill Haslem, a Republican, and Phil Bredesen, a Democrat. And before we go back to the phones, Governor Bredesen, let me ask you this. There are people right now, people ask me this all the time. What is up with these undecided voters? How have they not figured it out yet? You now have, you've been through a number of elections. Why are people undecided after all this time at this point in the race?
Well, I think that, I think there's always some, and I think in particular in this race, you have people who like some of the things that Donald Trump says that he's going to do, but are unsure about his suitability to be president and are trying to balance those two things in their minds. And probably the same with on the other side, but I think not as strongly. But you also have people who just, when I get, these calls from people and so on, I'll say I'm undecided. I'm just, don't really feel I need to share who I'm voting for every time somebody asks me the question. I think all those are factors.
Ryan is joining us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ryan, what's your top issue?
I'm really concerned that neither of the candidates really seem to be addressing the issue of education, and I mean that from like K-12 through the university system. More and more teachers are quitting. The satisfaction with public education is an all-time low, and the cost of university education is only going up every single year. And we're not training kids to do things other than going to college. And those who are going to college are coming out with a ballooning amount of debt that is sending some of them onto the streets as homeless or putting others into payment plans that will last 30 plus years. And I know that education is primarily a state issue, but it feels like the federal government needs to maybe be putting conditions on universities saying if you're going to have students taking federal debt, you can only increase your tuition X amount every year. And could the federal government do more to help the K-12 system in states reinstate, vocational education? Because quite frankly, not everyone can and should go to university. Right. And that's coming from a person who has worked in teaching.
So you're an educator yourself, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that call. Governor Haslem, your thoughts?
Yeah, Ryan, preach on. One of the most disturbing things about this campaign, and by the way, the same thing in 2020 and 2016, is there's been zero mention of education, K-12 or higher ed. And I agree with you. We have a teacher shortage. We have students who actually, despite everything we're doing, we're not seeing true gains in learning and growth. There's ample reason for concern. And like I said, one of those is it's not even a topic. And we never get better at anything unless we at least talk about it and argue about it. I will say this. There are some universities around. Our University of Tennessee went 4 years without a tuition increase. Purdue University in India, and there's several that have. So a lot of schools are understanding that if we're going to serve our market, we can't price ourselves out of the market. And that's really important. The other thing I'd add is, particularly here in Tennessee, we understand that vocational education, technical education is really important. And really for this Governor Bredesen's term, my term, and then the current governor's term, we put a lot of increased dollars into vocational and tech education, realizing that gaining those practical skills is really important.
Let me ask you, before we go back to another call, by the way, each of you, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but as you look back on your 2 terms as governor, what would you say, we'll start with you, Governor Bredesen, is the thing that you're most proud of that you were able to accomplish as governor of Tennessee?
Well, I think, when I came in as governor, the state had a big problem with its Medicaid system. We had tried to be the Massachusetts of 2 decades later by expanding Medicaid, and it was a disaster. And while it's a protective thing, I think navigating through that and keeping the state from getting in really deep financial trouble was a long and very arduous and very involved sort of process. And but I think it laid the groundwork for both a very good Medicaid system now and our ability to continue to do things in other areas like education. And so that's something I'm particularly proud of.
Governor Haslem, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat and say 2 things, but one of them actually applies to Governor Bredesen as much as to my term. He started some education reform efforts that we picked up and continued, and as a result, in my 3rd year in office, Tennessee became the fastest improving state in the country in K-12 education. And again, it's a good example of how government should work. A Democrat administration to a Republican administration kind of handed the baton and didn't let up on some of the changes we were making, and it showed dramatic results. The second is we became the first state in the country to give free community college and technical school to everyone in the state. And I think that was transformative. Again, back to one of your earlier callers, it's about providing more opportunity for people. And, the ability to do that, I think, changed the trajectory of a lot of people's lives in Tennessee.
Briefly on the topic of y'all's legacies, Terry in Houston, Texas wants to ask both of you, if given the chance, would you run again?
I'll go first. I would in a second. Listen, running for office is hard. By the way, if you want to know what running for office is like, it's a little like listening to your callers. You knock on enough doors, stand on the front porches, you hear enough varied opinions. Like this is called the middle, right? But we've had people, pretty strong perspectives from one side or the other, and it just shows you that's what campaigning's like.
But they're all willing to actually have a civil conversation, which is one of the nice things about our call.
Amen, which I love. But would I do it again? Yes. The chance, serving in public office, no matter what it is difficult, particularly in today's world where people want to hate the other side and tear their head off. but there's very little chance to make as much difference as you can in public office. And both of us served 2 terms as mayor and 2 terms as governor. And I know for myself, yes, I'm doing both again.
Governor Bredesen, by the way, I will give you a chance. You want to run again?
I'm getting a little on in years to be doing it again. I don't. I'm by my age, I'm qualified for the Senate or the presidency, but I don't know about governor. But the answer is that I loved my job. My job as governor was the most rewarding job of my life, and I would, if there were a chance to do it over again, of course I would. Realistically, there's not.
Okay. Drew is with us from Little Rock, Arkansas. Drew, what's your top issue?
Well, what really strikes me is that I'm glad I found this the first time I listened to your show, and it's the first time I've heard the middle in decades, maybe. There's just this A-B polar thing going on, and it's just so heartening to hear these 2 gentlemen. And I fear, though, that the Republican former governor, would not be considered a Republican by most members of his party. He's a rhino. And maybe that used to be a label of, a horrible thing to say about a Republican, but I think it's maybe honorable now because, you're reasonable. All of us have different views of the other side. I'm a parent. What parent believes in abortion? But do I want a sweaty, pasty politician telling my wife and me what I should be doing? No, that's the issue. And it's just reasonableness seems to have gone out the window.
Yeah.
And I really applaud you guys.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to the show. We're on every single week. You can listen to our podcast, too. Governor Haslem, I'll let you respond since that was a nice compliment to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, I think. But look, the point of our podcast, you might be right, or that we got the name. There was a senator from Tennessee named Howard Baker, and he had a famous saying that always remember the other side might be right. And so what we're trying to do is to encourage people to at least listen to the other side's argument. Here's what I think one of the things we both learned in office. These decisions are harder and more complex than you think they are. And if you think that's simple and that's obvious, then you probably haven't worked hard enough to understand the other side's arguments. And so, again, one of the things we're trying to do with our podcast, you might be right, is let's at least explore both sides, and then you can decide where you want to end up.
I also want to say neither of you guys looks pasty right now.
Yeah, no, or sweaty.
How about sweaty?
I'm a little sweaty, but you guys look great.
Let's get to another caller. Kai is with us. Kai is with us from Palatine, Illinois. Kai, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hi, nice to be on. So I'm a young student. I'm 20 years old. I'm currently attending college. And I feel that, honestly, a big problem that I have is with education. I'm seeing a lot of misinformation spread online. Even right now, I'm scrolling through Twitter and seeing all this misinformation and people not wanting or not feeling the need to fact check what they see online really, really saddens me, and it makes me worried. So I feel that we as a nation need to really emphasize in our education system that we should be telling our students, hey, keep looking, keep going places, make sure that you are critically thinking about everything that you see.
And is that going to affect your vote this November?
I think I've already had my mindset for this November with a lot of what I've seen, especially with a lot of the news coming out about Trump's case recently for the 2020 election. But making sure that we have a properly funded education system, which a previous caller said was more based on the states.
Yeah.
But putting the pressure to increase our quality of education, especially in lower funded places, is very important to me.
Kai, thank you very much for that. Governor Bredesen, your thoughts on that? I mean, Kai's basically saying he wants to have an informed electorate, people that are really critically thinking about what they're reading, what they're seeing, and coming back to the issue of education again.
Yeah, I think it's something that we need to figure out how to incorporate more of that in secondary education in the school system, because I think it's really important. I mean, my own educational background is in the hard sciences, physics. And one of the things I think you learn in doing that is when somebody tells you something, you say, okay, now do I believe that? Can I get at it another way? This makes sense compared to other kinds of things I know. And I think just helping students to understand that those questions are important, and the skepticism for listening to anyone is important, is one of the most important things we can do, as opposed to teaching facts that are regurgitated on multiple choice tests in the education system.
Let's go to Claire, who's in a swing state. We've had a number of swing states this hour, but Madison, Wisconsin. Claire, welcome to The Middle. What's your top issue?
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you. Jeremy, I am worried. I'm worried about the outcome. If Donald Trump wins, the Supreme Court has basically given him carte blanche. What is he going to do with that immunity? And if he loses, is he going to accept it, or are we going to have another ugly revolution? I'm very scared.
Claire, I understand that, and you bring up the Supreme Court. I do wonder, is the Supreme Court part of the reason for your vote? Is that a top issue for you? Just because Trump obviously put 3 members onto the Supreme Court during his first term.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. She's brief. Claire, thank you for your brevity. I appreciate it. We've got so much to get to. I appreciate your brevity. Governor Haslem, your response to Claire there. There are a lot of people who are worried about this very issue, about whether Trump will accept it if he loses, but also the issue of the Supreme Court, which hasn't really been in the news as much this election season, but it's always there in the background.
I think underlying all of this is a loss of trust in our institutions, and whether that be the democratic process, the Supreme Court, the judicial system, et cetera. And that's incredibly concerning to me. And when people do things that make, whether it's politicians or others, make people think, our systems can't hold. Our systems holding, our institutions holding, is what separates us from, the places we think of as banana republics or whatever you want to call it, the more unstable governments around the world. And I just think it's critically important that we not do anything to cast doubt where there shouldn't be doubt on institutions. So I'm hoping this is going to be a really, really close election. And my concern is I don't think we'll know by 11 o'clock on election night who won. I think it's going to take a little time to get all the final results in. And I am worried about that period while it's being decided. And then if anybody decides to contest the results of that, it's just going to further fracture our country that doesn't need any more splitting.
I know I'm going to regret this, but I'm going to go to the phones one more time for Jamie in Dallas, Texas. Jamie, just be brief, but tell us what you're thinking. What's your top issue?
Gentlemen, my top issue is the departure from the silent generation leading this country. I was glad, even though I voted for Biden, I was glad to see that he stepped aside. I think it was an honorable and genuine thing that he did. Now, with that being said, I know you gentlemen are close to that generation, or you grew up under it. I grew up with my grandparents and my parents. They are of that generation. Now, this is not a uniquely American deal. You guys mentioned this, that your age would qualify you for the Senate or the House, whether it be Pelosi, McConnell, all these people, Grassley, and all this. Outside the United States, it's not uniquely American. Xi and Putin, Modi in India, the leader of Iran, they're all of that silent generation. And I would just ask, why is it that generation will not release power and move on and put your grandkids on your knee and let the world move on?
Jamie, thank you very much for that. Yes. Wait, let me let Governor Bredesen in here because I want to give him the last word on this.
I think in both of our cases, we actually did kind of cut it off, even though we both said we'd like to be, governor again, should the circumstances, permit it. But I think a part of it simply has to do with how structured and kind of narrow our process for determining who runs and electing people is, so that people who already have a presence, perhaps, having been on the Senate or someplace or another in their 40s and 50s and 60s, have a real leg up on being able to continue to achieve it.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. But what an amazing hour! I want to thank my guests, former governors of Tennessee, Bill Haslem, a Republican, and Phil Bredesen, a Democrat. Their podcast is called "You Might Be Right." Thank you both so much for joining us.
Enjoy it.
Privilege. Thanks.
And next week, we're going to be talking about one of the big issues in this election, which we heard a little bit about this hour, immigration and deportation. Donald Trump has called for deporting all the undocumented immigrants in this country.
Be sure to call in at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can reach us at listentothemiddle.com, where you can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmistaz, and John Barth. Our intern is Annika Deschler. Our technical director this week is Steve Mork. And thanks to our podcast audience and the more than 410 public radio stations making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and I will talk to you next week.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Saturday, May 2nd, country's biggest stars will be in Austin, Texas at our 2026 iHeart Country Festival presented by Capital One. See Kane Brown, Parker McCollum, Riley Green, Shabuzi, Dylan Scott, Russell Dickerson, Gretchen Wilson, Chase Matthew, Lauren Elena. Tickets are on sale now. Get yours before they sell out at Ticketmaster.com.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature, and trees, and praying, and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.